know me, I'm Gaynor Grant. I own the cooking school, and tonight we are going to make Pittsburgh's delicacy, pierogies. All right. I know there's 30,000 different ways of spelling it, and different ways of pronouncing it, and different ways of making the dough. But I learned to make this dough off two little Polish ladies on the south side, because we loaned them our kitchen. They were making them for a big festival or something, and they couldn't use their church. So I said, yes, the only thing it's going to cost you is you're going to have to teach me your recipes. But of course, I had to guess. I had to stand next to them and guess what they were putting in, because it was always some of this, some of that, you know, whatever. So although I am not from Pittsburgh, and I'm not from any country that pierogies ever came from, I have it from the horse's mouth. So hopefully you will approve. We're going to do two different doughs with our pierogies tonight, and then we're making three different pierogies. We're doing the classic cheese and potato. We're doing something a little a la carte, whatever you want to call it, a little gourmet, which is the mushroom one. And then we're going to do a baked one, the apples, which I think is great fun, and gives us sort of a taste of apple pie, but making pierogies. So it's a little bit different. And we're going to do two different types of dough. There's no reason why you can't just use one type. We're going to use the butter one for the dessert. And maybe a bit, if we've got some left over, we'll just make a couple of the pierogies with that. And then we're going to do the sour cream one with the savory pierogies. Okay, but again, it doesn't really matter. You may prefer one to the other. You may find one easier to roll out from the other. I'll leave that to your imagination a little bit later as to which one you think rolls out the best. But what I want to do first of all is I want to cook our potato, quarter pound of potato, which for me is about one potato. What I suggest you do with this is just peel it, cut it into small cubes, put it in a pot, cover it with water, and a sort of heavy teaspoon of salt in there, and then just let it cook until it's really soft. And while that's cooking, we'll move on and make both the doughs, because we want to refrigerate the doughs to make it easier to roll out while we make the fillings. Okay. So if everyone, if you have any questions, please let me know. I would like everyone to mute themselves, not because I don't want to hear your wonderful voices, but we tend to hear your machines going and your clanging and the banging, and we can't hear, my ears hurt and you guys can't hear me. So just put yourselves on mute, please. And then, as I say, any questions, if I'm going too fast, if you missed something, if I made a mistake, wouldn't be the first time, then unmute yourselves and say, hey, what about the mushrooms? Don't they go in the mushroom pierogi or something like that? You know, okay. All right, so we will get started. I'm just going to peel my potato. Nothing difficult with that. It's funny doing a relatively small amount. Normally we do, when we do this in-house, obviously we're cooking as a big group, and we're doing it for 12 people, 14 people sometimes. And we're sometimes doing like, 2 pounds of potatoes. It's actually surprising. You'll see from this 4 ounces of potato how many pierogies you'll get. You should get at least a dozen, maybe a couple more, because a little goes a long way. All right. So I'm just going to cut this small, just so into sort of small cubes, because then it will cook quicker. All right. So I'm going to cut it in two, and then cut each half in two, and then chop those into little cubes and put them in my pot here. You do want to salt your water. It's normally a teaspoon of salt per quart of water. So if you're putting about a quart of water in, I put about a teaspoon in. The salt will help to seal the flavor of the potatoes, won't make them salty if you're using that amount, okay? Yeah, if you don't salt them, the potatoes don't taste of anything. So very important to put a bit of salt in there. All right. And so what you want to do, you want to cook them with the lid off at a boil. All right. When are they done? Well, I can't tell when yours are done because I can't touch them or feel them. So basically when they're nice and soft. Okay. Remember, we're going to mash these. So they want to be nice and soft when you finish with them. Otherwise, you can have trouble mashing them up. Okay. All right, that wasn't too difficult, was it? All right, so now we'll move on to the two doughs. I have here 1/3 to 1 2/3 cups of flour, the first recipe. That's because this will depend on the brand of flour you're using. Flour, I say this, I should have this on a placard or something, but flour is not a constant. Even the same brand isn't constant, but different brands vary as to how much liquid they need to make a dough. And even if you use the same brand of flour 12 months of the year, it's going to be very different in January from what it is in June. In June or July, the flour absorbs moisture from the air, from the humidity. Therefore, when it's more humid, more moisture, you need less liquid usually to make a dough. Usually this time of year when it's cold, although we had a freaky day today, you usually need more water or egg or whatever it is you're using a liquid to get the right dough. So that's why I have that varying amount. We're going to start with about 1 1/4 cups, and we'll add those other ingredients. We may add a little bit more flour if it's too sticky. It's sort of common sense. The dough wants to come together, but you want to be able to pick it up without it all sticking to your fingers. Okay. So you could do this by hand, but if you've got a mixer or if you could do it in a food processor as well, it just makes life nice and easy. I'm going to bring this and turn it around on here so you guys can see what I'm doing, okay? So as I say, I'm going to go with the Polish one first, and we're going to use the flat beater, all right, to mix this, okay? Oh, did we just lose somebody? I think we might have done. Oh well, hopefully they'll get back on. I'll have to keep an eye on my thing there and make sure that they're oh, not my other bowl over. Oh, let me put this up here. All right, so let's start with a cup. So scoop your flour, take your hand, wipe it across. And I need to grab a 1/3 cup as well. All right, and that's my 1 1/4 cups in there. Put my flour here. And stick this down a bit. There we go. And then I need egg, and I've got some water. Okay, so the Polish one has the sour cream. So you want about 5 to 5.5 tablespoons of sour cream, okay? Five, and then a half one. Now I'm going to mix that together a little bit first, and then we will add the egg. So the strange amount of egg is because we're doing a smaller volume here. So we're actually going to use a whole egg and then a tablespoon of additional egg. All right. So just mix this together just a little bit first, just to get it blended. So about a tablespoon of your second egg. There's 3 tablespoons in a I'm going to actually do it like this. There we go. That's about it. In a whole egg. All right. But we're adding just one tablespoon of the additional egg. And then we're going to add a tablespoon of canola oil as well. Pop that in. And then we'll just want to let it mix. I got everything in? Yes, I do. I can tell already I'm going to need more flour. My dough is very soft. I thought I probably would. I always just like to err on the side of caution. So I'm going to add about 1/3 cup of flour and let that mix in. And I give it a feel. Yeah, it's still a bit sticky. So I'm going to go with my extra 1/3 cup. So I actually am adding 1 2/3 cups. So just do it until it feels that it's a dough that you can get out. It should be soft, but it shouldn't be wet, okay? And just let it come together. Oops, I'll turn this slightly this way so I can get it out of here. All right. If you have a little bit left in the bottom and you don't want to keep mixing it, you can actually just take the dough and I'm just gonna, there's a few, because I put that extra flour in, I've got a little bit of flour in the bottom, so I'm just gonna mix that in with my hands just to form a rough dough. I'll make sure I get it all. Okay, I'm good. Okay, now it's soft, but it's not sticking to my fingers. Okay, and that's what I want. You want it soft enough that you can, you're going to be able to roll it out, but not so soft that it's all sticking to your fingers. Okay, and we will flour our chopping board and everything when we use. I'll just put a bit of flour on my hands to roll it around. Okay, so what I want you to do is wrap this either in plastic wrap or put it in a Ziploc bag. Put a bit of flour on so it doesn't stick to my Ziploc bag. And just pop it in the bag, and then this will get cold. It will be even less sticky when it comes out of the fridge. So once you've got that out, you can, we're just going to use the same. You really don't need to wash your KitchenAid bowl out. It really isn't necessary. Just trying to pop that on there like that. This is, you know, very similar. It's not a lot of difference between the two. So it's, you know, you can wash it if you want. Okay. So the other dough, the second dough, which is our butter one, is 2 cups of flour. Now the rest of that egg, 2 tablespoons egg. There are 3 tablespoons of egg in a large egg, and we've used one of them, so we have 2 left, I hope. 4 teaspoons of butter and 1/2 cup of lukewarm water and a teaspoon of salt. Okay, now there's salt in this one, there isn't salt in the other recipe. Why? I have no idea. Just the way it was, the way they made it. So you want to get yourself some lukewarm water. So just, you know, just hand hot. And about 1/2 cup. All right, so this time we're putting 2 cups of flour in our bowl. My hands are wet, so I don't want to scoop it up with my hands. It's too wet. Got my hands. 1. There we go. All right, so it's 1. And then second one. I've got extra flour in here because you're going to need extra flour later to when we roll out. All right, so 2 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons of egg. That's the rest of that egg yolk, Put that in. Make sure you get it all in. 4 teaspoons of butter. It's better if it's slightly softened. You might want to soften it a little bit in your microwave. I usually put it on, when I'm trying to soften butter, I usually put it in on the defrost and put it on for about 10 seconds if it's half a stick, because that'll just soften it a little bit as opposed to making it all runny, which you don't want. You don't want it to melt. You just want it to be soft, okay? And then I'm going to put the side up, and I'm actually going to pour my water in while the machine is running, but I am going to put my salt in before I forget. So about a teaspoon of salt. So put your teaspoon of salt in, and then put your machine on low, and then just pour your water in. My potatoes are nearly cooked already. Now, let this run till the dough comes together. If it's a little dry, add maybe a couple of teaspoons of water till it comes together, okay? I'm gonna check mine and see. Yep, and a little drizzle of water in there. Just a little tiny bit dry. Putting just like about a teaspoon and a half in, maybe 2. And you can see the dough's coming together because it'll all mass together around the beater, and then you shouldn't have any residue in the bottom. All right. Stuck to my beater a little bit. That's okay. Whoop, there we go. I'm going to put this guy away so I can actually work properly on this counter. Oops. I have this lovely appliance garage down here. It's great, but it does sometimes, working next to it is hard. So same thing. My dough is soft, feels damp to the touch, but it's not sticking to my hands. All right. That's what you want. That's all you want, really. And you also want it to stay in one piece. If it doesn't, and there's flour on it, sorry, and it's all, you know, it's really floury, you need a bit more water. Okay. So this one's going in my baggie, and we're done with the mixer.
Hey, Daddy.
Okay. Somebody is not on mute. I can hear voices. I can hear voices. I'm hearing voices. All right. So, wipe my hands. Everybody good? Everyone's got both doughs made? Got them in the fridge? Good, good. All right. So, I would imagine that your potatoes are probably almost soft now. Mine are. So if they are nice and soft, just drain them and stick them in a bowl that we can, maybe a medium-sized bowl that you can add your onions to in a minute. All right. There we go. Doesn't look like a lot, but so I've got my potatoes. They're soft. I'm going to throw them in the bowl there and come back to those in a minute. So the potato pierogies. Move that. I don't need that page at the moment. So for the potato pierogies, we've cut the potatoes. We're now going to cook some onion. Okay. So what I want you to do, you're going to need an onion. And we're going to do 2 or 3 tablespoons of onion with this. So what I want you to do, it can be a bit more, it really doesn't matter too much. But we're going to cut our onion first. And we want these to be small diced onions, because if they're not, they're going to be too big in our pierogies, okay? So what I want you to do, take your onion like this, cut it in half. Or put the knife in, the skin's a bit tough on this one. Right through from the stem to the root. All right, I've got a really big onion here, like this. So I have a half an onion here, like this. I'm going to actually put this on the overhead so you guys can see how I do this. I'm going to show you how to dice an onion. What I want you to do while I'm doing that is peel off the dark skin, you know, the brown skin, off your onion. You just get this back on. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to go to the overhead. Here we go. All right. So this is my half of onion right here. Okay, so I'm going to chop off the stem end. Now what I want you to do, I'm going to have you do this whole half of onion. We're not going to use it all, but I'm just going to so I can show you how you're going to dice an onion properly. You might want to use a small knife for this. It's up to you, but basically you want to try and keep the roots intact. So to do that, you put the point of your knife. This is the root. This is the point of my knife. I've stuck it right through to the chopping board, and I'm going to bring my knife forward like that. And then I'm going to do the same right next to it, about a 1/4 inch away. And then I'm going to do it again about a 1/4 inch away, trying not to cut through that root. Follow the contour of the onion round like this. Don't cut it like this, because you want to cut through the layers of the onion, and you'll cut through it much better if you follow the contour of the onion. It'll separate much better. And then do the same on the other side. So if you see, my half of onion is split, but it's still attached at this end. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. As I say, we're not using all of this, but you can always use it for something else because it will keep. You may have to cut it. If you've got a small knife and you've got a big onion, you may have to put a bit of pressure on it. So now I have my half of onion, and it's all in pieces like that, except it's joined here. So now I can cut it into small dice. Hold the root end. I'm right-handed. The root end is towards my left hand. I'm holding it like this, holding my onion together with my fingers, taking the point of my knife and cutting into my onion. Okay. Now I'm just going to do that much because we don't need all of this onion. Okay, but you can go all the way back to the root. All right, just before the root, and then all you're left with is the root, and the onion stays together and doesn't all fall apart. Okay, it's a good basic culinary technique. That's it. Oh, I didn't put my doughs in the fridge. Put your doughs in the fridge, guys. They won't get cold sitting out on the counter, will they? So this is my onion for my potato pierogies. So what we're going to do, we are going to lightly saute them in a small skillet with a little bit of butter and oil. So I have a small skillet here. I'm going to put in a couple of teaspoons of butter and about the same of oil. All right, like that. Now we want to cook these onions, but we don't want them to go brown. We want them to stay white, but we want them to be soft. So what I want you to do is to heat your oil up, your fat up a little bit, and then we'll add the veggies, onions, and cook them till they're just really nice and soft. All right, not burnt. So you'll want, once the pan gets hot, you want to turn your heat down to low and cook them very gently till they're nice and sweet and flavorful and not burnt and brown. Okay. So just till the butter melts, and then you can turn your heat down and put your onions in. Now, obviously, you could add other stuff here. You could add garlic as well if you wanted to. We're just going to do the traditional cheese and everything. And again, you could obviously vary your cheese. I've even made these with blue cheese because I'm a big blue cheese fan, so I've made them with blue cheese. Okay, my butter is melted. Okay, so I'm going to put my onions in, and I'm going to gently cook these over a low heat until they are soft and translucent, which means I can see through them a little bit. Okay, so we'll let those sit there and keep an eye on them. Now with our potatoes, we want to mash these. Just use a potato masher or a fork, not many of them, just mash them up like this. And then we want to add our 1/4 cup of cheese to this. Yeah, about a 1/4 cup should be enough. I've got more than a 1/4 cup in here, so I'm just going to add that much. And mash those again so that the cheese gets mixed in with the potato. And we don't need to season this because we've already salted the potatoes when we were cooking them. So that's a good thing. Now, the thing is, the reason why you want to make your fillings ahead of time, i.e. before you roll out your dough, is that you want to make sure your fillings are cool when you make your pierogies, because if they're warm, they will cause the pierogies to come apart. They'll cause the dough to break because it kind of melts the dough a little bit. All right. So let's simmer those away. Gentle heat. So just so they look really lovely and smell really nice, and you can even taste them and see what they taste like. All right. So we'll mix those in, and then we're going to put that to one side, and we're going to let it cool while we make the other filling. All right. Got flour all over the place here. Clean up a little bit. Now, with a small amount of onion we have, this should not take too long to do this, okay? It should only take a couple of minutes, really, for those onions to soften up. So keep an eye on them, all right? And then when we put them in there, we're going to put all that butter and oil in there as well, which will add more flavor to our lovely mixture. Yeah, mine are starting to get translucent now. We're almost there, I think. And as I say, just taste a piece. It should be fairly soft. Not quite. Fairly soft and, as I say, translucent, okay? Because your onion's not going to cook anymore when it goes in the pierogies. The amount of time you put them in the water, they're in there maybe 2-3 minutes. It doesn't cook your veggies or your filling anymore. That's why your filling needs to be fully cooked. Okay. All right. So mine look fairly soft now. So I'm just going to put them all in with the potatoes and the cheese, and putting them in with the hot cheese kind of softens, doesn't really melt the cheese, but it softens the cheese up a little bit. So give that a good mix. And then we're just going to literally, I mean, you can just sit this at room temperature. As long as it's not hot, it'll be fine. It doesn't have to be cold. It just has to be cooked room temperature. And it will be by the time we've made the other one and rolled all the dough out. Okay, so just sit it to one side. Okay. I hope everybody managed to get some dried wild mushrooms. You can usually get them at Giant Eagle, or they have packets of mixed ones, and it's really, you can use any ones you like, really, it doesn't matter. I got some lovely little, I'm actually not sure what they are. I got them at the Chinese store on the strip, so they're not ones I normally get. They're not porcinis, but they smell really good. Okay, so let's look at this this recipe for the wild mushroom pierogi. So I hope you soaked your mushrooms in your boiling water, so they're fairly soft. Mine are softish. We are going to cook them a little bit, so no big deal. So what we're going to do, we're going to just strain these, and we're going to strain the liquid which is why I asked you to get a coffee filter, because there's sometimes grit in the liquid, and we want to use the liquid, and we're going to reduce it when we cook the mushrooms down to give a more intense mushroom flavor. All right. So we're going to do a bit more of that minced onion in a second. We want about half a cup of minced onion, minced garlic, mushrooms quartered, and our butter. So let's start off by doing some more onion. So grab that same onion, and if you've got enough from the one half to do half a cup, great. If not, do the other half of your onion. All right, so this one's already split up, so I'm going to cut this, see how much I end up with. I should be fairly close, I think. Woo! This last batch of onions I had, I know it sounds really silly, but they seem to be the onion layers seem to be really sort of loosey-goosey. Don't ask me why. Yeah, I'm going to slice a tiny bit more. They just seem to be, yeah, actually, I think I've got enough. That's about half a cup. That's good. But yeah, they seem to, the leaves seem to be fanning out. All right, so half a cup of onion, clove of garlic. You want to mince that too. Just take it, give it a hit with your knife, and then shake the skin off. And then just chop this up a bit. They are just going to go in the food processor, so don't worry too much. Okay, chop it up like that. So we have our mushrooms here. Now, our other mushrooms, the regular mushrooms, when you're cleaning these, it's much better to clean them with a piece of damp paper towel instead of actually washing them, because they're like sponges. They absorb a lot of liquid. So if you just rub them really well with a piece of paper towel, you won't get any water, extra water in them. They haven't got enough water in them as it is. So about 3 ounces of mushrooms. And we're going to cut these in quarters. For now, it doesn't matter because, again, it's going in the machine. Okay. And then, as I said, with our mushrooms, we want to strain these, but we do want to keep the liquid. So you want a bowl and a strainer. I think I've got another strainer. Where's my other strainer gone? Oh, well, I guess I'm using this one. That's all right. So first of all, okay. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to strain the liquid into there, mushrooms into there. Okay. Now, give them a little shake. Give them a little squeeze to squeeze out any extra water. If you feel any grit on these at all, give them an additional wash, but mine feel really fine actually. So with these, I'm just going to cut them roughly. All right, like in half. Depends which mushrooms you have. Just cut them in smaller pieces, okay? Now, with that, oh, this little knife's not doing a very good job. With that liquid that we've just strained off the mushrooms, this is what we're going to do with that, because I say to get any grit out of it. Mine looks beautifully clear, but doesn't mean it really is. So what I'm going to do, what did I do with my coffee filter? Oh, here it is. There's my strainer. All right. So I have my coffee filter here in another strainer. Okay. So what I want you to do is to pour that water you did the mushrooms in slowly over the filter and let it drain through. All right. Mine looks super, super clear, but well, very little in there. But sometimes you do get quite a lot of grit in there. So you want to make sure you get no bits in there. May take a minute or two to drain, but I'm actually going to grab another bowl, then I can move on and let this do its thing. Okay, I'm going to pop it in there and let it sit like that for a minute. Okay, so what we're going to do, so we have garlic, onions, both types of mushrooms right here. Okay, so we're going to put the dried mushrooms and the fresh mushrooms in the bowl of a food processor or blender. Okay, because we're going to puree these. Now, if you're just using a blender and you're having difficulty blending because it's dry, add a little bit of that strained mushroom juice to it, all right, to help it puree. You shouldn't need to do that if you're doing it in a food processor, okay? But the blender does tend to need moisture in there to get it to puree properly. Okay, so mushrooms and dried mushrooms right in my blender. I'm going to put my lid on and I'm going to turn this on high and let this break up. Okay, let me show you. Should be pretty broken up. Okay. Put it back on there gently. So now we're going to add our onions, onions and garlic to that as well. And puree it again. You want to do the mushrooms first, particularly because the dried mushrooms, because they take longer to puree. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Oh. So we want to process this again, and then we're going to melt a little bit more butter in our skillet. So it should be very finely minced, okay? So a little bit of butter and melt that. Not too high a heat. Now we're going to cook this, and what we're doing is we want the mushrooms to go nice dark color, and we're going to get rid of most of the liquid out of it, and then we're going to add this liquid. But then we're going to turn the heat up high so this all evaporates. So we end up with a dry mixture ready to put in our pierogies in a little bit. So once your butter's melted, take a spatula and scrape all that lovely mushroom onion mixture, onion garlic, three of my favorite things, onion, garlic, and mushroom, into the pan. Now, medium sort of heat, all right, because they do have a lot of liquid and we want to get rid of as much of that liquid as possible and cook it off. So this is going to take a few minutes to cook. Spread this out a bit, turn my heat down. So we're keeping out strained liquid to one side. Move my butter out the way. All right. All right, so while that's cooking, we are going to do some sliced onion. If you look on the recipe here, we've got sliced onion and shallots. This is our topping that we're going to cook separately. That's going to go on top of our pierogies at the end. All right, so we're going to cook those separately. They're like a garnish kind of thing. So what I want you to do is to slice your onion, and you can do as much onion as you want. I'm just going to do this half onion, but you can do more if you want to. And we're going to do some shallot if you have it. You don't have to do shallot. It's just a nice combination. The shallot is in the garlic, in the garlic and onion family, and is a little milder tasting. And we're going to do a combination of the two. So thinnish slices of onion, because we don't want them to be too thick and take ages to cook. All right, and they can just sit in a little bowl, and we will cook those in a little bit. All right, separately. And then a shallot, I have a bigger shallot. I have a half of a shallot left over from past day for yesterday, so I'm going to throw that in as well. And they will cook together. All right. So I'm going to do slices of my shallot as well. shallots are like this, and I'm just going to slice them whole, slice it whole, I should say, and have that ready to cook and garnish my pierogies. That was my attempt at an Eastern European accent. It wasn't very good. Oops. Somebody needs to sharpen her knives. I think it's me. I'm using them so much at the moment.
Excuse me.
Very sharp. Yes.
Did you add the rest of the mushroom liquid to the mushrooms that are cooking on the stove?
No, not yet. No, we
Okay.
want the mushrooms to cook first, okay?
Okay.
We want to get nice and cooked, nice and brown, and then we'll add the mushroom juice, turn the heat up, and let it evaporate. So move your mushrooms around.
Okay.
They're going to take a little while. They take a good few, maybe 10 minutes or more to brown, all right, because there's such a high liquid content in there. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? As we've got a little hiatus at the moment, waiting for our mushrooms. Have you got any problems? Anything else? Well, not problems, but questions, I should say. I do have to try and keep my workstation clean, otherwise you won't be able to see anything. Oh, you like the smell of mushrooms. This is wonderful. Now, with the apple ones, we're not going to do anything with the apple until we've rolled all the dough out, because the apples will go brown. We're going to grate them and mix them with some sugar, some cinnamon, and some lemon juice, and then squeeze it out, which sounds daft, I know, but the lemon juice will stop it going brown. And then we do that and then stuff them straight away, because obviously they'll go brown, which is why we're not going to do anything right now with those. Okay. So just keep moving your mushrooms around. So that they can cook fairly evenly. But a little thing we can do while we're waiting, we can actually peel our apple, as long as we put it in a bowl with water and a bit of lemon juice, okay? We can peel it ahead of time, or then ahead of time, but as I say, once it'll have to go into a bowl with a little bit of lemon juice. You can cut it in half or whatever. I'm just going to peel mine off and stick him in a bowl. You can cut it in half and stick him in a bowl. It's a huge apple. I think it's a Honeycrisp. I love Honeycrisp. My favorites. Like to keep you busy, you see. I don't want you to have any downtime. All right. So I'm just going to cut my apple in half. And I'm going to put him in a bowl with a bit of water and cover him with water and a little bit of lemon juice, so that it doesn't go brown. There we go. Hopefully you should see some of your mushrooms starting to stick to the bottom. That's a good thing. Just keep moving them around a bit. They want to be lightly brown all over, so it's a good thing if they're looking a little dry. All right. I'm going to have a peeled lemon here that I used for something else the other day. So I'm going to put a good squeeze of lemon juice in there, and then let my apple sit. Okay. Now we do at the end, we want to season this with a little bit of salt and pepper and a little bit of oregano. I'm just going to use dried oregano. I had fresh oregano in the garden and I thought it was still there. And when I went out this morning to look at it, I realized it wasn't. So I'm going to add that in a minute when we add. You can use other herbs too. It doesn't have to be oregano. It could be anything you like. Just be parsley if you want. Mine's starting to get pretty dry, but leave it a few more minutes, okay? So you can remove your chopping board and stuff because we want to have plenty of room to roll our doughs out in a minute. So I'm just going to move this out of the way. And wipe my counter down and then dry it because we're going to put flour on here to roll the dough out.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Did you add the mushroom juice yet?
Not yet. In a minute. I'm looking.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, my mixture's looking pretty dry. Yeah, I think it's good. It's fairly dry. It's starting to go brown on the bottom. I've turned it around a bit. So I'm going to put the mushroom juice in now. I'm going to put it all in. And then I'm going to put a little, maybe about a heavy teaspoon of oregano, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of pepper. Now, you want to mix that in and then turn your heat up high. Now, because we've got a wide space here, the liquid will evaporate pretty quickly. But we want the liquid to evaporate completely, okay? I like pepper. So just keep an eye on it, but we do want it to evaporate completely, all right? All right, clear my work surface down a little bit. And as I say, you will need some flour, guys. The other thing you'll need, I suggest you get, is a little bowl with a bit of water in and a pastry brush. And then also a couple of cookie sheets to put your pierogi dough on, and then also to put the pierogies on before we cook them. All right, you want to put a coating of flour on your cookie sheet so the pierogies don't stick to the cookie sheet. All right, because obviously we're not cooking them on here. This is just to store the cutouts and then also to store the actual pierogies that we make. All right, I'm going to put those there.
Excuse me, I have a question. Did you just
Yes.
sprinkle flour on the cookie sheets?
Yes, just
Okay,
like that.
Okay,
That's
thank
just
you.
to stop them from sticking. All right.
Thank you.
I say we're not cooking them in there. It's just that when we're going to lay the dough on there, the circles on there when we cut them out, and then we'll lay the pierogies on there before we cook them as well.
Can you give us just a sec? I think some of us are behind you a little bit.
Yes, yes, that's all right. No problem. No problem. I'm waiting. No rush. We've got plenty of time. When you do wipe your counter off, dry it as well, guys, because otherwise the flour will go yucky when we put it on there. Okay. So I still have a fair amount of liquid. still in my mushrooms, so I'm letting it carry on cooking until it's pretty much dry. All right. So does everybody have their mushroom juice in their mushrooms?
We do. Hey, we have a question.
Yes.
So in the instructions, it says cook onions and shallots. Did we miss that, or we're going to do that
No,
later?
we're going to do it a bit later. We're going to do it. They're cooked separately to go on top of the pierogies. So we'll cook them while we're cooking the pierogies, so they're nice and hot. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. So we're just cooking the mushroom mixture down now, that's all, and then we will be ready to roll out our dough when that's...
Do you use 2 monitors at work?
So that mushroom liquid is going to really intensify the flavor of our pierogies, our mushroom pierogies. I don't see much of my liquid, but my mixture's a little sloppy still, so.
So how do you know when it's dry enough? Is it the liquid's all gone, or
Yes, the liquid's
it
all
still
gone,
shiny?
and it's starting to look a little dry. I mean, mine here is most of the liquid is gone, but I've still got bubbles of liquid sort of bubbling to the surface. So I want it to be a bit dry. Bear in mind, we want to be able to sort of pick it up and put it in the pierogi. So it should be drier than you would want to normally eat it. You get my drift. I'll show you when it's done.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's very hard to work with if it's all sloppy. As long as you're watching it, you can turn your heat up fairly high. As long as you just make sure none of it burns. That'll sort of speed up the process somewhat, quite a lot. Move it around, that will help to dry it out too. You want it almost to the point where a bit of it starts to stick to the bottom of the pan. And then it's pretty, turn it over and it's pretty dry. Tastes good. It'll also obviously decrease a lot as the moisture disappears. You'll end up with a lot less mushrooms. Well, they'll be very concentrated. Okay, mine are starting to stick to the bottom. All right, let me show you. All right, can you see here they've stuck to the bottom a tiny bit? See how little I've got left in there now? So that is good. I'm just going to put them in a bowl. And I am going to put these in the fridge because they are very hot, and we do want to make sure they are cold when we use them. All right. They probably will be, but just for safety, put them. See, I've got some stuck to the bottom of the pan. That's a good sign. So it's amazing the amount of mixture we have left, considering what we started off with. All right, what I want you to do now is to take one of your doughs out of the fridge. I've got the Polish one, the first one we made. And you're going to need a rolling pin or something to use as a rolling pin. And then you're also going to need flour for your work surface. So sprinkle flour, not too much, over your work surface evenly like that. All right. Now, what you might want to do, and I think it's easier is to do the dough in two halves. So break your dough, just separate your dough into two halves. Put the other batch back into your bag into your Ziploc bag so it doesn't dry. And then we will work with a batch at a time. So what we want to do, we're going to roll these out. They want to be thin. My dough feels a little moist still, but that's okay. You just want to use a lot of flour on your rolling pin. All right. You want to keep your rolling pin floured, and you're going to roll your dough out. Now, what I suggest you do, you roll it and turn it, roll it and turn it, because if you just keep rolling, it's going to stick to the table and you won't know it. This way, every time you roll, if you feel it starting to stick, you're like, uh-oh, it's sticking a bit, put a little bit more flour underneath, okay? Now, these do want to be thin. How thin? Oh, about 1/8 of an inch. Thinner than you would think, because otherwise it's going to be all dough. It's going to taste really doughy, and you don't want that. So just keep that nice and loose and moving around on there. And make sure when you roll evenly, so you get even thickness. You will get a little bit of bounce back with it, you always do, but you just want to make sure that it's pretty even. A test I always have, see that little bit stuck a little bit right there? So a bit of flour there. I always think, I don't never really know how to explain this, but basically, if I put my finger on it and press, I should hit the counter straight away. I don't know how, it's basically right underneath my finger as I press it, all right? That's usually how I tell if my dough's thin enough. It's not very scientific, I know, but it's kind of like, oh, good, that's good. It doesn't feel doughy, you know, and all like thin. So I don't know if you can see, but I'm kind of just going, and it's right there, hardly an indentation. Okay, so we're going to cut them out. You want about 2.5, 3-inch cookie cutter. Doesn't matter really. And then you're going to cut these out and lay them on your cookie sheet. Don't overlap them because they will stick together. Also, dip the end of your cookie cutter in flour. That will stop them sticking to the dough, okay? Do it close together and you'll get more out of each roll. Just be frugal with your you're cutting, okay? When you do this with kids, they go like this, they do one in the middle, you know, it's like, no, 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 not in the middle. So I can get another one out there. I'm gonna get one more out there, I think. This end's a little thick, so I'm gonna roll that a tiny bit and see if I can get one more out that corner. Yes, just. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got a dozen. Perfect. That's what I wanted. Now, you can re-roll this dough. And obviously, if you're making these for a lot of people, you would want to do that. What we're going to do, we're just going to try and get a dozen out of each half of the dough. And then you can always roll the dough out again later if you have lots of filling left. I'm using my bench scraper to pick these up because even though I had all that flour under there, a couple of them are stuck a little bit. That one's okay. Be careful picking them up because you'll knock them out of shape otherwise. Don't pull on them, just lift them off. Now, to conserve your cookie sheets, if you have some wax paper or some parchment paper, you can do 2 layers. All right. So you could definitely probably get another 4 or 5 out of that dough easily. All right, but you probably want to let it rest in between. All right, so I'm going to get a piece of parchment and put it on there. A piece of this. Getting low on parchment. To get some more. So I say parchment or wax paper, either's fine. And then pop it on the top and then just sprinkle more flour on the parchment paper. And then you can do 2 layers or more, okay? Pop that back there a minute. Okay, so I'm taking my other half of dough. I'm gonna put some more flour on here. This is the other half of the Polish sourdough, sour cream dough, not sourdough, sour cream dough, okay? And I'm gonna hang on and put my extra little bit back in the bag in case I need it later. Sometimes I don't like to put flour on top of my dough, but if it's been a Ziploc bag, it's sometimes a bit wet on the top from the Ziploc bag. So I sometimes just give it a little powdering with a tiny bit of flour. Yes, I'm listening. So this is, I'm doing the second half of the Polish dough, okay? The sour cream one, and we'll do some of the other one. And then, as I say, you can make more later if you want to. There's usually plenty of dough left over. It doesn't, I've tried freezing this dough, it's okay, but to be quite honest, I stick it in the freezer and forget about it. And then 6 months later, I go, what the heck's this? Oh, pierogi dough. Oh, well, I guess I've thrown it away. Probably better to actually, you could make your pierogies and fill them and freeze them, filled, but don't defrost them. The way you cook them would be like if you bought, like you buy Mrs. T's, you take them out of the thing and you cook them from frozen. And that's exactly what you want to do with these, is cook them from frozen if you freeze them. You would cook them at a lower temperature, maybe just a simmer, and they would probably take about twice as long to cook as the fresh ones will. You'd have to just cut one open and make sure it was cooked inside, that's all. But yeah, that's the way to do it. Don't defrost them because they'll go horrible. All the filling will go mushy and all the ooze out and it'll be horrible. I may get a few more out of this one. I've got a slightly, maybe not. Let's give it a little twist each time, gently. I don't want to twist it too much because I don't want to distort it, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 that time. Woohoo! So I'm probably going to use these for the mushrooms. So I think I've got a little bit more mushroom filling, but it doesn't really matter. Now, when we roll the other dough out, you'll be able to judge which dough you think is easiest to roll out. People have various opinions about that. Oh, this one's a little bit skinny, but never mind, a bit thin. So if you were going to leave these for any period of time, or if you were like stuffing these all on your own and you've got to do them in batches, you know, like it's going to take a while, I would suggest you covered your cookie sheet here with a bit of plastic wrap, because they will dry out otherwise, and you don't want that to happen. All right, but we're not going to be doing too much with that. All right, so I have currently then like 26, 28, I suppose, something like that. And I do have some dough left over if I've got any left, filling left later. So for my other dough, did I get it out of the fridge? No. Now again, I suggest maybe you just use half of this for now for the same reason, because it's easier to roll out half. Same procedure. Again, this is definitely a little wet on the top from the plastic bag. So I'm just gonna give it a little coating of flour, which I don't want to do once I start rolling out, but I do want to get that so it doesn't stick to my cookies, to my rolling pin. Now this should feel a little different to the touch. Got a little bit of butter in there. It'll be a little different to roll out. I think it's a little harder to roll out this dough. Harder, needs a bit more pressure because of the butter in there, which gets cold and obviously solidifies a little bit. So it tends to be a little, I think require a little bit more elbow grease to roll it out. All right. So we're going to use this for the apple ones. Okay. And again, you want to get it as thin. As I say, I think it takes a little longer to get this rolled out, but it doesn't tend to spring back as much as the other one. So, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. While I think about it, just this is coming to mind, put your oven on 350 sometime in the next couple of minutes. So we've got it preheated to do our apple. So I'm just thinning this out a bit. So a little harder, I think, to get to roll. How do you get carpal tunnel? Okay, that's pretty good. Again, nice, same sort of thickness you're looking for, okay, that we had before. Now, I am actually going to put these ones on a separate cookie sheet so that I remember which ones they are, but you don't have to. Yeah, so the dough's generally not as soft, I don't think. Okay. Didn't cut through that one completely. There we go. And I took a bit out of the other one. Oh, never mind. The same with that one. Must be losing my strength or something. These cookie cutters are pretty sharp, so I don't know why that didn't work. All right. Goodness gracious, I did this on a few of these. There's my cookie cutter gone. I didn't press hard enough. There we go. All right, so I've got 6, 7, 8, 10 of these. So I'm going to do a little bit more. Goodness gracious me. I'm not to use a cookie cutter. There we go. Again, depending on the size of your cookie sheet, of your cookie cutter, with that, the other dough, you're probably going to get, I've got 26, you're probably going to get about at least 3 dozen almost, I think. Sometimes less, it depends on the size of your cookie sheet. With this one, probably about 2 dozen, I think, roughly. It really varies depending on the size and how thin you roll it and all that stuff. And what you'll notice is when you cook them, you'll know if they're a little thick. You'll be able to tell. You go, oh, these taste a little thick. Next time I need to be, roll them out a bit more or something, because that's usually what it is. And also the size depends on the size of your cookie cutter as well. So I know we always end up with, when I say they're 24, I'm being sort of on the cautious side, because if somebody uses a good 3-inch cookie cutter, that they may only get that many. They may not roll their dough out as much. They may get bored with doing it.
Nikki,
So
it's
funny. It's difficult. It's every time you make this, it may be slightly different. You'll get to know when you make it, like, oh, that's a bit dry this time. Next time I'll have to do a bit more of this or a bit more. It's a lot. It's just, working with it and just getting the feel for it, and deciding like, oh, well, when I made it last time, it was really good and it was this consistency. So I have to really shoot for that consistency next time, So it's kind of trial and error, All right, that's the rest of my dough. So I'm going to really cut these out properly this time. Oh. There we go. I might as well do the whole thing. May not have enough for all of them, but that's okay. Woo! All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to fill do the apples first, and then we're going to put those in the oven. All right, and let those cook, because they take longer to cook in the oven than the other ones that we're going to boil in water, of course. Oh, come on. All right, I think I'm good. Getting tennis elbow here. All right, so now to cook the apple ones, you need like a shallow baking dish, all right, of some sort. Doesn't really matter what I've got a Le Creuset I'm going to use, but you can be anything. It could be a glass Pyrexy one or something like that will go in the oven that's fairly shallow that we can lay them in. I'll show you. You'll see when we lay them in what we're looking for. All right, I'm going to leave the rest of that dough for now. Okay, so the apples. Put your dough to one side. I don't think you really need to cover them over. This is only going to take a few minutes. So I think we should be okay. So with the apple, we're going to grate it, okay? I'm just going to grate it onto the table here. Just a regular grater. Actually, I could just grate it into the bowl that I'm going to use. That would make much more sense, wouldn't it, really? Yeah, so grate it into a bowl, because you're going to mix the other ingredients with it. Let me just grab my bowl. Okay, so I'm just cutting my apple. I know you can't really see that. I've got it here. Just cutting my apple in chunks. Take out the seeds, and then I'm using the coarse side of the grater, okay? And I'm going to just I'm doing it on the table because I can go deeper with my grater. Right, good. So I'm just grating it on the fat side, on the thick side of the grater, putting it into the bowl. I'm going to lift my thing up a tiny bit. Sorry, I'm just playing around with my camera a minute. Ah, got wet hands. Yeah, I'm just going to move the camera up a tiny bit so you guys can get the darn thing undone. My hand's wet. There we go. That's it. There, that's better. Ah, it's hard doing this with wet hands. There we go. All right. So to this apple mixture, we are going to add lemon juice, sugar, and cinnamon. I know we put lemon juice in with the apple before it's cut, but now that it's chopped, diced up, we need to put a bit more in, okay? Oh gosh, throwing things all over the floor. Okay, so my last bit of apple. Okay. Okay. So I'm just using one large apple, guys, okay, in here. And to that, I'm going to add half a cup of sugar. Sorry, I put in far too much sugar. I'm looking at the sugar for the topping. I'm going to tip some of that out because I don't need that much. I was thinking that's a lot of sugar. There we go. Might be a bit sweet. Never mind. I was looking at the sugar for the topping. I was like, oh. All right. And then about 1.5 teaspoons of lemon juice. So I'm going to use the lemon. I'm going to use the juice from half a lemon. All right. That should be good. Pick out those couple of seeds I've got in there. Darn it. And then a little bit of cinnamon. You don't have to put the cinnamon in if you don't want to. But it does add a nice, I think adds a nice taste. So just about 1/8 of a teaspoon, not very much, okay? I'm just going to give it that's it. We sprinkle over like that, all right? And then toss it around. And then what I want you to do is to pop it in a strainer. All right, I'm going to put it in here. And press down with my hand to get as much moisture out of there as possible. The lemon juice has done its job now. It's coated the apples. but we do want to let it drain. Now, the other thing you can do as well, which I often do, particularly if I'm going to go straight ahead and do this now, which we are, is to then take a clean dish towel. Put that drained apple in your dish towel like that. Pull it up and strain it again. Twist it. You can see how much liquid's coming out of it. We don't want that liquid in there, so strain it through the dish towel like that. Okay, and then it'll be ready for us to use. All right. While you're just getting that bit done, I'm just going to wipe this down. You really want to get all that moisture out of there because it'll all just ooze out when we go to make the pierogies. Now remember, you do want a little bowl of water, just a little bit, and a pastry brush if you have one. If not, you can use your finger. All right, this is just going to.
Can you slow down again?
Yes, sorry. All right, are we still grating apples? All right, yeah, I'm just cleaning up. I got to get more flat sugar anyway because I used half my sugar for my topping. So just when you've got your apples, you squeeze them out. You can put them back in your bowl and then they'll be ready for us to use in a minute. So it goes down to not very much. Okay, are we good?
Yeah, what do we put them in once we squeeze them out?
Just put them back in a bowl or in a bowl like that. I've just got them in the bowl. This is about 10 inches long and about 5 inches wide, but you could use a square, you know, like an 8-inch, 9-inch square Pyrex dish or something like that. All right. Okay. You'll see it doesn't really matter. You just want them fairly close together. All right. When you pitch your pan, guys, take a little bit of your extra softened butter, which I hope you have, or just get some more, and rub it round the bottom of the pan. This stops the pierogies from sticking to the bottom, okay? All around like that. And then we're going to do these with the butter dough, or I am with the butter dough. And you will, you might want a little fork. I usually just use my fingers, but you might want to use a fork as well if they don't seal tight. But usually they'll seal pretty tight, okay? All right, and then grab yourself a small spoon and I'll show you how to do this. Okay, so take your pierogi in your hand. Now you literally, with this size, you can see the size of my dough right there, right? I'm gonna take, oh, not even, maybe 2/3 of a teaspoon of filling. There you go. Can you see? And then I'm going to take my pastry brush or my finger with water on, and I'm going to go round the edge. Just a little bit. And then fold it up and pinch tight. Your dough should be soft enough that it'll stay together. If it isn't, then do it with the tines of a fork. Put it down. Put it down and press the fork. Sorry, press the fork against the dough. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to lie them in. All right, in my container that I'm cooking them in. So again, just make sure you don't fill them too full. This is more important really with the ones we're going to do in the water, because they will tend to burst open. These don't so much, but you don't want to fill them too much. So pinch them. Now, when you put them in here, I'm slightly overlapping them like that. Okay. You can do this with your fingers or whatever you want, or a spoon. It's up to you. But again, don't put too much water around there. That water is just to help you seal them together. Press nice and tight, and they should stick. So you can see how little filling you use, and that's why the filling goes an awful long way. All right. So just slightly overlapping in your container, whatever you're going to cook them in. So I'm doing them in two lines. Definitely, this is a job if you're feeding, the whole extended family. You definitely want people to come around and help you do these. You'll be doing them for days otherwise. I think that's what people do actually. This is the fun part. Making them is fun. Rolling the dough out, not quite so much, but all right. Just checking the time here because we're okay, I think. Oh yeah, we're all right. Got nothing else to do tonight anyway, right? Oh, now that one. Didn't put enough water on there, so it came open. So I'm just going to squeeze it again. There we go. All right. And then what we're going to put on the top of these is a mixture of sugar and cinnamon, sour cream, not a mixture, but sour cream and breadcrumbs. And basically we're going to smear a layer of sour cream over the top of these. Not all over, but just like a coating on the top. And then we sprinkle, well, we cover with a small layer of breadcrumbs, and then a sprinkle with sugar and cinnamon on the top. And they're lovely. Okay. And get one more in there. I'm sure I'll move them up. I'll probably get a couple more. I've got two more here, so it's pretty good. So it's amazing how many you get out of a very small amount of apple. This is a tiny one. I don't know why this one's smaller than the other, but it is. And that one's a bit misshapen, so I'm just going to go with this one. So I probably could do another, no, I can do another 2 or 3 more, I suppose. Okay. So we have them all lined up in, woo, that bit's not sticking, there we go. Put one on that end. So they're all sitting like this, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some sour cream and I think a small spoon. I'll just use this one. And I'm going to put a little bit of sour cream on the top here and kind of just smear it over. We don't want it like 3 inches thick, all right? Like a sort of smear all over the top of these. Like that. Light shines on that, it's hard for you guys to see. All right, so I've got it like this. And then now these are fresh breadcrumbs I have here, bread made just from bread, all right? Ideal, but not absolutely vital. So I'm going to take these breadcrumbs, oh, I don't mind, it's a bit lumpy, and I'm going to do a sprinkle of breadcrumbs all over the top. Okay, and then a bit more over there. I want you to about a 1/4 cup of sugar, which I've got bits of apple in that I got because it stuck too much in my thing. Again, a sprinkling of cinnamon in about a 1/4 cup of sugar, and then you're going to sprinkle this all over the top as well. I'm not going to put all of this on. I think that's enough. Okay. All right. So these will go in your oven for about 15 minutes. All right. Uncovered, not covered. All right. And they should be good. They'll be brown on top, lightly brown. All right, so I'm popping those in for 15 minutes. I'm going to take my grill pan out of here first. Oh, I need more water. Well, the floor, that won't do. All right, how's everybody doing? Folding madly. When we go, I'm just going to show you guys, when we go to cook the other ones, this is like a sort of a deep fry pan. It's about 4 inches deep, I suppose, 3 or 4 inches deep. This is what I'm going to use to cook my pierogies in rather than a big saucepan, all right? Because it's a bigger surface area and they can sort of float around in there. So when you finish what you're doing, fill this about half to 2/3 full. A pan like this, half to 2/3 full. Or you can do 2 pans if you want, because you can cook both lots together. That would be great if you can do 2. But fill it about half full with water and put a little bit of salt in. And a little bit of salt. I'm going to put about a teaspoon of salt in. And then I'm going to grab my other pan. I have a similar one. We want to bring this, put this on, and we can bring it to a boil, ready to do our other pierogies in a minute. Look, I should have got 2 out when I started. I didn't. There we go. So I have a second one here like this, which I'm going to use. Bit of an old pan, but it'll do the trick. And you can do a smaller amount at a time if you want to. Just cook less. The thing is, when you do these, you don't want to put crowd the pan and have them like 3 deep or something, because they'll stick together. So that's why doing something shallow and wide makes it a little easier. You can cook more at one time. Cute. All right. Has everyone finished doing their first lot? I think what we might do, because I don't want to run over too much, all right? I think maybe we'll do half a dozen of each one now and cook them. And then and cook the onions and everything. And then we'll be at least to 8:30. I don't want to keep you guys for too long. And then you guys can cook the rest, form them, cook the rest later. All right, does that work, do you think? So, because I know it's a lot to do. So grab your, the technique is exactly the same for these with the potatoes or whatever. Now, the only beauty with the potatoes, I sometimes do this, was that I will take my potatoes ahead of time and roll them into little balls. You don't have to do this, but you can do. You can roll them into balls ahead of time and then put them on one side, and then you've got them there to put in your pierogies, but you don't have to do that. So let's just do a few of those.
Can you repeat, how long do we need the the apple pierogies in the oven?
Oh, sorry, 15 minutes.
15, thank you.
Yes.
Great.
So I'm just making little balls of my potato mixture, just because it makes it sort of, again, when we do these at the school, often we're tag teaming. So someone's doing this, someone's filling them, So it's quite a good idea to do it like that.
Excuse me, if we're planning on freezing instead of cooking right now, how should we store them?
Okay, what you should do, freeze them flat on a cookie sheet and then put them in a Ziploc bag. Otherwise they'll stick together. And then, as I said, cook them from frozen, okay? Yeah. At a low simmer for probably about twice as long as we normally cook them, okay? So maybe about 5 or 6 minutes. But again, I usually take one out, break it in half, see if it's cooked and if it's defrosted properly inside, all right? Okay. And if it isn't, just leave it longer. So the technique for putting these together, exactly the same, all right? I'm just putting a bit of water around. I'm taking my little ball of dough. I'm brushing off the flour I've got underneath, so a bit too much flour on here underneath. And then just pinching them together exactly the same. Make sure they're pinched really well, because the action of them cooking, I've got far too much flour on the bottom here. You may want to brush this flour off, guys. Don't get too much flour on there. The action of cooking them in the water as it bubbles will sometimes open them up. A bit like, you know, if you ever made homemade ravioli, the same thing happens with those. So really pinch them nice and tight. Okay. Just like that. Oh, there's plenty of water on those ones. You may not need water on them. Sometimes they'll stick on their own, but I think it's always just a little safer to put that little bit of water on there to make sure they stick together. So these are a little easier if you've got the balls, because you just got to put them on there and push them together. It's simple. Okay, so I've just done 6 of those for now, and I'm going to get my mushroom mixture out of the fridge and do the same with some of those. All right, so I'm just taking a little bit. I'm doing a finger or spoon. It's entirely up to you what you use. I just sometimes might get my fingers in there and just do it. Now you should find your mixture's nice and solidified as we reduced it down so much, and if it's sitting in the fridge, it solidifies even more. Nope, didn't put water on. Too busy talking. I know you really don't want to stand here and do all of these with me. All right, so let me turn this around and you can watch these cooking. Woo! If I tip my camera forward, that won't do. My water's almost at a boil. Once it comes to a boil, I'm going to turn it down to a real gentle boil, okay? Because if a vicious boil, it's going to bubble and bubble and bubble, and then it's going to open them up, all right? Now, also, we do want to cook those onions. You don't have to do this right now, but I've just washed out my skillet. I'm going to saute my onions and my shallots to go on top of one or both of my pierogies. I had a thing of butter somewhere and I can't find it. Oh well, I'll use this. Oh, there it is. I got it. So I'm just going to melt my butter back here, and I'm going to gently cook. Come on, my burner sometimes doesn't light. I'm going to gently cook those onions and shallots to serve on top of. Sometimes my burner won't light. There we go. All right, so my butter's almost melted. It's getting there. All right, my water's just about at a boil. This one is here. So I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. I don't want it to boil too viciously. All right, so I'm going to turn it down to sort of medium low. And then I'm going to pop these guys in. 1, 2, try and space them out. Try not to have them one on top of each other. Obviously, we're only doing 6 at a time now. That shouldn't be an issue. And then my water here is almost at a boil. So I usually leave these in for about 3 minutes. I'm going to put my timer on. I know it's just been a bit longer than that, but many people say, oh, when they float. But the problem is, if you've got a bit of air in there, they're going to float anyway. So they're going to float straight away. So that's not always a true indication that they are done. I have my other pan going here, and I'm going to pop the mushroom ones in and cook those for about 30 seconds longer than the other ones, because the other ones have been in a bit longer. Anyway, the nice thing about you doing these later, they'll be nice and hot. All right, so my onions at the back there, I'm going to throw them in. Medium-high heat, we want to get a bit of color on these. Which I think I'm going to move these over here. A little easier to deal with over here. There we go. And for serving, I'm just going to put them in a little bowl. And for the potato ones, I am just going to serve them with a little bit of butter on the top, which I'm going to add. Or you could do it with some of the onions as well. I'm on my little knife now. I can't find it. Grab another one. Probably should have started my onions a little sooner. Yeah, so they will, if there wasn't air in them, they will start to float to the surface. But as I said, if there was air in them, they're going to rise to the surface, you know, like anything with air in when you put it in water. So do watch your heat. Don't let it really bubble away, because it will open them up. Okay. Of course, you could do sometimes when I used to, before I made pierogies, I used to buy Mrs. T's when I first moved to Pittsburgh for my kids. I would do peppers and onions to go on the top, because they kind of liked peppers and onions, so I would do that. All right, now let me just show you something. What I usually do when I take these out, I touch them to a piece of paper towel, so they're not all wet on the bottom. Just a piece of paper towel, and I touch it like that, and then put them in, or on a plate, or whatever I'm going to do with them. Okay. And then I'm going to pop a little bit of butter on top of these ones. And you could sprinkle them with additional cheese if you wanted to, obviously. So a couple of little bits of butter. I know you can't see this, I've got the camera turned the other way, but a little bit of butter on there. I know the light, you can't see them very well, but my bright light above my head affects it. All right, I think the other ones pretty much done too. So I have another little container for those. Those the other ones I'm going to put the onions on in a second. Put my onions on. And yeah, these are done. "15 minutes, they should be good." Basically, if you can see mine here, hopefully, let me lift it up a bit more. Let me grab another minute. Basically, what will happen is your breadcrumbs will get a little bit of color on them. Okay. And it'll go a little slightly crusty on the top. All right. And they're just going to be like heated through and they feel great. They're nice and hot. All right. I could have done a little bit longer, but I think that was long enough. I wanted a little bit of brown on those breadcrumbs. That's all. Okay. All right. So there we have them looking beautiful, I think. Regular potato ones and cheese, and then these are with the lovely onions on the top, and then our lovely apple ones. And I hope you'll be pleasantly surprised how good those apple ones taste, and they may take the place of apple pie in your house. Maybe I like them, and it's not as it's not different dough to apple pie, so I think it's kind of nice, really. But did everybody get theirs out of the oven?